We're now into May, and I thought I'd just do a little bit of a feature of this area. This is my wildlife area, and this is where I created what I call the wildlife dip pools, and I did this through the winter. Before this, it was just simply grass, and I thought it could be a lot more than it was, and so I set about through winter building that pond, or building those pools rather than a pond. I never wanted a pond because I didn't want any fish, because if you have fish in ponds, you'll get herons visiting them. Before you know it, your pond's either emptied of fish or emptied of water. As they spike the fish, they often puncture your pond. So I never bothered with that. Now at the moment, this is a little bit off colour, the water itself, and I am going to get a plant to rectify that. I'll get some aeration plants and we'll pop one or two of those in and hopefully pull it back round. But I wanted to focus on this because I just wanted to show you what you can create in a short time. And I know I've got a bit of an advantage over people because I'm able to pick up bits of reclaim, like you see at the back, and within the pond or at the edge of the pond as well. And I thought I'd just focus in on it and show you how good it looks now after such a short time. And it is a short time, because I only finished building this in about, I think it was January or February of this year. These ponds were in. I've placed lots of rocks around it, as you can see. And the added bonus to this particular pond is that I've managed to create this almost shoreline. So that lot of pebbles there, the smaller pebbles in the foreground there, they actually work their way slowly down into the pond. So they go down at an angle. So whatever comes in, and I'm hoping that we're going to get some hedgehogs at some point, I'm hoping that they'll drink from within that, and if they do fall in, they'll have absolutely no problem at getting back out in any of these, including the little dustbin. Now the dustbin was to create 3 pools, because I like odd numbers, so 3s, 5s and 7s I like, and that's what it's got, 3 different sections, as you can see, subdivided by the rocks with that causeway running across. But they are individual dips themselves, and if you look back on my video of me making this, you'll see exactly how I did that. So we've introduced different plants around here, and I've got quite a few now going, and they're really going for it. Now my favourite, I think, at the moment is this Rheum palmatum, and it looks like it is Atrosanguineum. It's about to flower and give itself away, and I suspect it is what I thought it was. So we've got a massive leaved plant there, and if you haven't got the room for something like a gunnera, which is the massive leaved ones, and the leaf itself on a gunnera can be bigger than that whole plant, to be honest with you, and it can be up to 6, 7, 8 feet tall, depending which part of the UK you live in. If you live in Cornwall or that way down, I've been able to walk through them like a forest. So this is a good alternative to the Gunnera manicata, which is it manicata, I think it is. Anyway, it's a Gunnera. It's the big leaved Gunnera. It's a good alternative because this one won't spread around the same as that one will. You can grow the big Gunneras as long as you keep them contained, or you keep them in a pot, then you can grow them quite successfully if you haven't got any sort of water, because they still grow outside of water, as does this Rheum, and this Rheum likes water. Now one thing I have done with it is I've created those sets of pebbles. So where you see those pebbles, that is the lowest point of the pond, and as I've said many times before, I created this, I inset this deliberately at the beginning because that Rheum palmatum was a bit closer than that. I have moved it through the winter, but it's close enough for that pond to overflow and to spill over into it so it gets the required water. And that's exactly what's happening. Now I use a mulch called Plant Grow UK, and it's a really good peat-free mulch I love it actually. It's absolutely stunning and does the job for me. And I think that might be partly the reason it's growing so well, but the main reason it's growing so well is actually the overflow of water. Now next to the Rheum palmatum, there's Lysomachia. No, it's not Lysomachia, it's Lythrum. I always get these two mixed up, but it's a Lythrum. It's a Salicaria type, so I'm talking about that one at the moment, Salicaria type, and it's called Feuerkerze, and it's quite a tall flowered plant, and it's a very, very sturdy one, and it's going to look absolutely great, and it has these lovely purple flowers that appear well above the plant itself. Now, it's not going to do that for another 2 or 3 months, but as you can see, it's already starting to work its way up. Now, in the tin, that one's Empress Wu, and if you've watched one of my other videos, you'll see that it was being attacked by slugs and snails, probably snails more than slugs, but little brown slugs do get them as well, so I needed to protect it, and I put it there so it's raised up. Unfortunately, I've had to use a few slug pellets in there, but they are nature-friendly ones, which is kind of daft to think about because it's going to kill the slugs. And slugs are a part of nature, but somehow it's not got its balance yet in this little area with the birds finding them. So I've raised it in there just to help me prevent the snails and the slugs getting it. So as you can see, there's quite a few holes in there, and I'm just checking it out to see if there are any in there, and I suspect not. I went round last night picking off snails off other plants, which I prefer to do, to be quite honest. I prefer to actually hand pick them and dispose of them that way, which is a lot easier. So this is the back end of the pond, and these, well, it's not a pond, is it? It's a wildlife pools. But the back of the wildlife area, it just looks good from whichever area I look at it. And I know it looks good through the camera, but actually seeing it in real life, it's nothing like through the camera. It's just so much better. So behind that yellow flower, that's Euphorbia palustris, and again, it likes water. And that's doing the best I've ever seen it. And I suspect, again, we've had a heavy rainfall for the last month and a half, and I suspect that's helping it, but also the fact that it probably is still getting some of this pond overflow going into it, because it is a marsh spurge, and it does prefer a watery sort of area, and that's what it's got there. Now, just below here, and I can see now that I maybe put that in the wrong place. That's my Eupatorium called Skinny Mini, and that also likes a little bit of moisture, and it would appear that I've probably made a mistake, and it may pay me to lift that and move it further away, because the leaves of the rheum are overgrowing it. Now, when I first put that in last year, it was fine because the rheum was further away from it, but I completely forgot about it being there, and it's little mistakes we all make from time to time. And it's growing, so and I can see already it's leaning towards the light, so it should be able to cope with that, to be quite honest with you. It should be able to cope because it's a sturdy plant in itself, and it will make 7 or 8 foot, and it'll push through and up in this rheum. But it's a shame that it's going to spoil that side of it. So I'm looking to the side just to see if I could move it, and yes, I could. That Deschampsia is one that's on trial at the moment with us. My friend picked it out from his nursery. It's where I used to keep my Deschampsias, and this is Goldschleier, and it became a really tall variety of Goldschleier, which quite shocked me because they don't get that tall, and this was at least 4 to 5 foot tall in flower, which is a bit unusual for Goldschleier. It never usually makes that sort of size. But anyway, what I think I may do is, yeah, probably move the Eupatorium a bit further over just to give it a chance. But the other thing I could really do is remove this leaf as it gets going. So what I'll probably do at the moment is leave it alone, actually, thinking about it. I'll leave it alone, see where it does, and if it can cope and push through without a problem, I shall do just that. If this leaf causes a problem, I shall simply take it out. It shouldn't affect it, it should be okay. So around this wildlife area, I've introduced some good tall plants. Now, I'm a big tall perennial fan, and grasses, big tall grasses. I love big tall grasses. And I've put this one here, this is a Miscanthus, and that one's called Miscanthus Gilt Edge, and it will get to about 7 or 8 foot itself, and it produces, as it suggests its name, a gilt edge on the leaf, and that's a really nice one if you can get hold of that. Behind it, I've just got some Trichium, and that is Monk. So it's the old Aster Monk is next to it. And that's simply for a bit of colour. And don't forget, you've got to remember, although that grass there is going to get quite tall, and the aster would require a little bit more sun, it's on the side where the sun shines, so the sun is actually going to hit it quite nicely, and it should bounce up and through. There's another miscanthus there called cabaret, and if you're looking for something quite interesting as a stripy grass, again, that one's really nice, and that'll probably only ever make it 5 or 6 foot tall, but it's a lovely clumper and a fast clumper, so beware of that. The other miscanthus is a giganteus. In fact, they're both giganteus. No, that one there is a condensatus type. This one here is more of a giganteus type. It's got a hosta, and the hostas suit this environment really nicely. I don't know what that one is. I really don't know what it is, because I've got several hostas around the place, and I always keep the labels until I'm quite familiar with where it is and what it is. And in this case, the label's gone. Now, that's not always down to me, because the labels do get put with them. But sometimes birds come along, pigeons, I get a lot of pigeons in this garden, they do pick them out. So if you've lost labels and you can't understand why, just think about the birds pecking them out. Crows in particular can lift them and take them away. And that's probably what's happened in this case. What else have we got here? So we've got another euphorbia here, and that's Amidigloides purpureum, and another one here. They always look good there. And then we've got the symphytums here. They're growing lovely. I know it's an invasive plant, but it takes this condition absolutely beautiful. They're all underneath the canopy of this Corylus avellana contorta. And just while we're here, you can see what happens. Now, I showed a video of how I did this, how I cut it back, and what it looked like when I'd first done it. And I did say it will grow again, and it'll grow quite a lot. It'll reproduce all these leaves. And every year I've got to be coming back in and removing these, and that's exactly what I've been doing. There's loads of them. It's growing excessively at the moment, so we might take a couple of days to do this. Over a couple of days, go back in and keep going back in and watch it grow again, and it'll still try and send up these little leaves. So you must keep removing those, because the whole point in having this here is for this shape. And you can create this quite easily. I was fairly lucky when we moved here, because this was already an established shrub. It's what's classed as a large shrub or a small tree, and it just had the greatest shape. I've actually took some massive limbs off of it. One in particular, which was there, was huge, and it had a lovely contorted look, but it just wasn't working. It was going in the wrong direction. It was actually going across that way, quite low down, and that wasn't going to work for me, because I wanted to lift its canopy. And that's what I've done. So I've now got to be mindful and keep doing that. So this is a really nice backdrop for it, this Corylus, and it does look good with it. So as I said, in the midst of winter, when this looked miserable and drab and it was just being created, that once the growth started, it would change things completely, and so it is, changing it completely. Now, I've put this little pittosporum in here. This is Garnettii, and pittosporums are not known for being hardy in the UK. And if we get a bad winter, we can practically lose all pittosporums, all but Pittosporum tenuifolium. But again, as I did in another video, don't be too quick to remove things if they look dead, because often it's just a response to the weather. And pittosporums can drop the leaves at any time of year, and evergreens tend to do this in a flush. Now, I did move it recently, and it's not dropping leaves because of that, because it's been here for 2 months. It's just a simple process it goes through. It drops leaves, older leaves, and it grows new ones. And that's in the area as well, in the wildlife area as well, because I just thought it would better suit it. And it does. And it has this lovely little edge. It's looking a bit dire at the moment, but that is a reddish colour, and then it'll eventually go back to a cream colour as the new leaves come in. You can see there's one developing here, if it'll focus, and that will have a creamy edge. Now, the other thing that people don't know about pittosporums is that they produce these tiny, tiny little flowers. And there you go. And people just don't know it does that. Now, I can't remember if this one's scented. Yep, it is. So this has got a very subtle scent. Nothing to knock your socks off, just a nice little scent, and a lot of the pittosporums do that. Now, as I said earlier, we get this dieback on plants, and you shouldn't be in too much of a hurry to remove your plants. Now in this case, you can see it's starting to send up lots of new growth. There, it's on all the end of the leaders. And what I shall do is I should go back in, and I can see, if you look at it, you can see there's lots of little bits and bobs that are dead. And what I shall do is go back in with my secateurs, and I shall clip away, and clip away quite happily. Now I'm not 100% happy with the shape of this, because I can see, just looking at it now, that the branch there on the left that you can see at the bottom really needs to go. Now people would throw their hands up and gasp at that. I'm going to let it flower and let it finish that process before I go for it, but I'm actually going to remove that one because I want it to become a small tree, which it will become, and a multi-branch tree at that. And over the next probably 3 or 4 years, it'll do just that. It'll probably make 12, 15 foot, who knows? Because we're in the UK, I'm in the middle of England, and we get different weather patterns up here. I'm on the Lincolnshire Wolds. So that's Pittosporum garnettii. It's a beauty, I love it. I've got this Pinus here, it's a Mugo type. No, it's not a Mugo type, it is Pittosporum, but it's not the Mugo. I don't think the label's there, but it's a Mugo looking type, shall we say, small. And I put it there before the Pittosporum went in, and I was toying with removing it because I thought, well, the Pittosporum's there now, it don't really need to be there, but I'm going to leave it because it's more interesting. And once that branch is gone, it's another reason for removing the branch, and then it gives access to viewing that. What I did not long back is I removed a dead plant. I can't even remember what the plant was, what was in here, but it died. So, you know, things are trial and error, things die. And I replaced it with this. This is a Miscanthus sinensis, and it's one I call Yakushimensis. It's actually a Yakujima dwarf, or Yakujima. And it's going to look absolutely stunning here once it gets into flower. But that'll be not for at least another 2 to 3 months yet, but it'll look absolutely stunning as it throws its flowers across into some of this gravel area. So it gets rid of more and more of the soil. I like to see soil, but I also like to see big bushy grasses as well. Now behind it, we've got a grass called Arundo Donax, and this is from Asia. So in Asia, it can be a bit of a monster, and in England, it can be a bit of a monster. It's a large clumper, but it'll only probably make probably 2 meters in England, and then over the time it may expand a little bit more, but generally it won't go crazy. It will do it slowly. It is a clumper, it is not a runner. So that's Arundo Donax macrophylla, the big leaved one, and it's superb. And it's a baby, it's a cutting I took off the other one. I took it off a side growth and showed you in another video how to do that. So if you look through my videos, you'll see that. And that's great. Now here we've got another Liphrium. This one's a Virgatum type. This one here. That's a Virgatum type. Whereas the other one, that Liphrium there, is a Salicaria type. The one there, that's Salicaria. So, this one is a lovely one, and I think it's called Dropmore Scarlet. Yeah, Dropmore Scarlet. There's the label. So it's Dropmore Scarlet, Liphrium Virgatum, Dropmore Scarlet, and it's a beauty. And again, it's going to get 4 or 5 foot, look really good, and it's superb, and I love that one. It just looks right round here. And don't forget, it likes to be around water. It's really a water plant. It's really a water plant, so it loves being next to watersides, obviously. Now this is Euchra, and it's probably my favourite Euchra, although I do like the fancy ones. I'm not very happy with them because the other ones tend to be a little bit more tender for us, and they can die, and they get a lot of pest control or pests within them. So I don't want to go controlling the pests. I don't want to mess about with that type of thing. So I'll get this one. I've got this one. It's called Zabliana, and it really gives me no problems whatsoever. It sends up these lovely flower heads. They're a bit insignificant, really, but they do look really nice. But what I really like about it is this colour, because this colour starts off green. As you can see further down, that's more green, and that's actually how it starts out, and then it becomes this lovely, what do you call that, a russet burgundy? But it's a really pretty pretty colour in my opinion, with that green edging on it. And that's nice. And it's just a simple Euchre, nothing special, bog standard. People don't tend to go for these types of ones. They like the real bright, shiny ones, the yellow ones and the variegated types and all that. But to be honest, they're American cultivars that are not that hardy. Not for us anyway. Now the grass at the back there, that's Oryzopsis miliacea. And it's the rice grass, and it's a dainty little thing, and it'll self-seed everywhere. And I can't wait for it to do more self-seeding, because it will go all over the place. And if you've got a woodland area, then try it in that. It'll do really well. But it looks really good against that container there. That metal container. Really nice against that. And it does set it off quite a treat. You can see why it's called the rice grass, because those little seed heads, they dance about in the wind. It's really nice. Another grass here, this is the pheasant tail grass, the Anamanthele lessoniana. And again, I don't mention the great Mr. Don, but he said on one of his programs that, you know, when it gets to this phase, you might as well get rid of it because it's dead. It's not. Even the ones that are really, really brown, 9 times out of 10 are not dead. They will come back. Give it time. Let it establish. Let it go. Some do die through winter, I will admit that, but a majority of them don't, even though they look dead. Give them time and they'll come back. So this is a Strantia. And this is a sterile hybrid. And it's a Strantia Roma. And it's quite pretty, actually. But it won't seed around, because don't forget, a lot of Strantias are really invasive. They seed everywhere. And you need to check them out. But don't be too quick to get rid of them seedlings. Let them just develop a little bit. They're easier to lift anyway, and they're easier to see if you let them develop a little bit. But I try and hunt out newer Strantias, and that's what I aim to do, is find a nice one. I've got several Strantias now, and I'm about to add to my collection with a dark leaf one that's been brought to the market by a nursery up in Yorkshire it's called the Strantia Dark Desire. And it does look really, really nice. All the leaves are dark, and it's supposed to have this really dark red flower as well. So absolutely everything I want to see from a Strantia. And I'm actually going to travel an hour and a half to buy one plant. Obviously, I'm going to buy more than that when I get there, because that's what will happen. But anyway, yeah, so Strantias look really good round here. So these are big rocks that I've put around the wildlife area, because don't forget, we need bees, we need wasps. Even wasps have a place in nature, and they serve a purpose as well. I know a lot of people don't like them, but they do have a purpose. And what this kind of finish allows is for wasps and insects to actually sit down there as well. In fact, as I was filming this earlier, a wasp did land on it. I meant to actually show you that, but it was too late by the time I got back in there. Now, we're naturally going to get little weeds coming in. I won't allow that weed to stay, because I don't want it, but I will allow the moss to stay. That adds something to it. And here there's another weed growing in that section, and I don't want that to stay, so that will go as well. Now, what I've created as well is these pipes, these old clay pipes. These clay pipes were used in the ground. In the UK anyway, in England, back in the day, this used to be a drainage system. And you find them in a lot of fields, actually still there. They're ploughed up or whatever, but they're basically a drainage system, clay pipe. And what I'm going to do eventually, I've got a few more of them, I'm actually going to add to that. In the past, I had a wall 6 foot tall full of those. And the insects used to sit in it, because I used to push bits of branches in, bits of straw, bits of detritus, just push it in. Insects pop into there, solitary bees pop into there, and they live in there, so it's a good wildlife haven for them. Now, I have that roof tile, and that's a ridge tile, just an old ridge tile, when we had some work done here up at Grassy Bottom, and that's an overspill of one of them. So all I've done is put it like that, just to add interest. That's all it's for, just to add interest. So let's show you here, and as you can see, looks absolutely wonderful. So it's easy to create this type of thing. Admittedly, I've been able to get hold of a lot of this stuff for free, we've dug up this stone. This stone's been just literally dug up in gardens, and I've reclaimed it. It's been hard going because some of them are very heavy, especially the one in the background there. That one there, that is really heavy. But I managed it, because where there's a will, there's a way. So on the edge of it, we've got this grass, and this is called Calamagrostis Kaiger's Giant, and it's a funny little grass. I say funny little grass. The clump itself will get bigger than that, and then it produces a long seed head. It goes right up about 4 foot and produces these nodding little seed heads. And you can't get hold of it, to be quite honest with you. I was lucky to get that one. That came from Pan Global Plants, who said he had it, and he sent me that one. I can't remember if he actually sent me it as a gift, because he obviously wasn't impressed with it. But I am. I love it. What have we got there? Oh yeah, we've got just the geranium there, just sat there. Another Miscanthus. That one will turn a purpley colour. It's a sinensis type. It'll turn a purpley colour, and it's called, well, purpley red, and it's called Miscanthus sinensis Ghana. And it's not very big, maybe makes 4 or 5 foot. Quite statuesque, really. Produces a ready type flower or seed head, whatever you want to call it. And it's a good one if you want a Miscanthus that's a little bit smaller. And then we've got another Sorbus. That one's Raven's Bill. And if you look that up in all the pictures, you'll see why it's called Raven's Bill on its new leaf. Before the leaf appears, what it's actually attached under is something that looks like a raven's bill. And that's how it got its name. Really good. So, there you go. I wanted to show you that because I wanted to kind of focus in on the wildlife area. And I see pigeons, I see birds in this all the time, not just pigeons. I've got lots of birds bathing in this, seeing batches of sparrows or bunches of sparrows, flocks of sparrows, whatever you want to call them, bathing in this, all sorts. So I'm hoping we get the hedgehogs at some point. I'm hoping we can get some toads or frogs jumping around in this area, and I'm sure I will. I've seen a smooth newt at another part of the garden. I didn't bring it down here because it was very cold. It'd been exposed. It'd been living in under some wood. And Kathy exposed that one, so we've left it alone and leaving it to warm up and do its thing as summer comes on. And who knows, we may find it down here at some point. So, there you go. A focus in on the wildlife area, and I think it's absolutely wonderful now. I'm so pleased with this one. I photograph it endlessly because it has turned out way better than I'd expected it to. And once the canopy of the Corylus comes in full, it'll look even better. And then again, once the Lythrum and other plants around it, the grasses get tall and to where they should be, it's going to look absolutely stunning. And I look forward to that, and I look forward to taking loads of pictures. And let's hope that the Rheum palmatum is looking semi-okay, because as summer comes in, it can tend to die away a little bit, especially once the flowers have come out. But I'll deal with that as and when I need to. So, thanks for looking, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-da!